Hi, welcome to the Rittner Floral School in Boston, Mass. I'm Dr. Steve Rittner, and it's a pleasure to welcome you into one of our classrooms today. The time of year, well, it's getting close to February, and typically in February we're thinking Valentine's Day. And of course, along with Valentine's Day, we think in terms of a dozen roses. Now, the classical expression in terms of using a dozen roses is to take a lovely container, put a dozen roses in it tastefully, arrange it possibly with some greens, possibly with some filler material, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. Everybody loves them. They're pretty, they give great value, they're a joy to give, they're a joy to receive. But what we want to show you in this video are a few other examples, things that you can do with a dozen roses that are quick and easy and fun and a little bit different. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. So let's get right to it. First of all, we have an example here of something that you can do with a dozen roses, and yet it is not our typical classical Valentine's Day expression where we have a dozen roses in glass. Rather, if you look at it carefully, it's a box. Yes, it's a box. It's a box of a dozen roses. These are very, very easy to do. This particular box has a liner in it. We put some foam in it, and all we did was take our roses and put them in rows. We cut them short, like so, placed them into the foam, 3, 3, 3, 3. In this particular case, we played with some colors here. We played with non-traditional colors, not just the red. We played with some lavender and also some kind of peachy colored roses. And it gives a very, very interesting effect. Something like this works very, very well, say on a coffee table. It looks really, really nice on a counter. It's not a tall design, it's a short design that you look down on. Normally when you see these things, they're not angled the way I have it here. But it's a very, very neat approach, and it's something that you may want to consider. It's quick, easy to do. All we had to do is put the foam in, put our dozen roses in rows, put a little bit of moss around it, and there you go. And because we have liners inside the box, we don't have leakage issue. Quick, easy, fun. The Rittner Floral School way, it doesn't get any better than that. Now, this you may say to yourself, myself, well, it's kind of small. And I'd agree. It is a small design. It gives a very, very pretty effect, and it's very, very good, especially if you're dealing with small spaces and you want to create a nice impact. But can we take a dozen roses, arrange them tastefully in a different way, but make it on a larger scale? The answer is, of course we can. And let me show you, my viewer, a way that we can do it. That's, again, a quick, easy, and fun approach. Now this one is significantly larger than the last one. Not for everybody's tastes, because it is a little bit on the way outside, but definitely something that is kind of fun and funky and incorporates a dozen roses in a neat way. Now, let's analyze this. We have here glassware. It happens to be an oval-shaped container. This happens to be one of my favorites from our collection. We put in some of the marbleized kind of materials on the bottom. And again, we're staying with non-traditional colors on this. You don't have to go with red roses. Red roses are great. There's nothing wrong with them. But why not play with some of the other varieties that are out there that are absolutely striking? And this kind of design is, again, impressive, but very quick and easy to do, even though it's large. Let me tell you how we did it. We took some of our roses, placed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, tied it together with a little bit of our decorative wire and dropped it in at an angle. We placed some of our curly willow. Isn't this curly willow amazing? It's big, it's expansive, it's very impressive. Placed it in the middle. And then we made another little section, taking some of our roses, tying them together with some of our decorative wire, dropped it on that side. Then we dropped a few of our flowers individually into the water, here, through the middle, and then tied some of our curly willow across to create an interesting effect. These kinds of designs are quick, easy, fun. They incorporate a dozen roses, but certainly in a non-traditional way, something that you may want to consider if you want to play with a dozen rose motif, but come up with something that is non-traditional and something that is a little bit off the beaten path. These are a lot of fun to play with. And I'm sure that anybody getting one of these things, if they happen to have adventurous tastes, are certainly going to appreciate it. So here's a second approach, very different than the box and certainly different than the classical design in a water base. But wait, there's more. Let's play with this in another way. And let's play with this theme again of a dozen roses. Now, in this particular case, I have a container. The container is a rather classical kind of container. It's a very, very pretty container, but something that we would normally consider to be a little bit more on the classical side. It's filled with our foam. We've got some ivy vines that I've taken off of our building and I've tied around here and placed in here. And I've placed a little bit of my moss around just to kind of give an interesting effect. And we can do, again, some very, very neat things with this. It's really, really quick and easy to come up with some nice effects. Once again, we're going to be taking some of our roses, and I am deliberately taking the same variety of roses that is kind of yellow with kind of red tips to them, and I'm working them around. And I'm keeping it in fairly close on this. Now, in this case, I am not playing with the concept of a box. I am simply working around in a circular pattern. And I think you can see, my viewer, that this really gives me a very, very neat effect. I'm going to continue the process. I'm going to place one right over here in the middle. So I have 5 of my roses so far. And then I'm going to take another 4 of my roses and place them around, around towards the back part of the design. So I'm going to continue the process of placing some of my flowers around over here, facing away from the camera. Take it on my word, my viewer, I'm doing exactly the same thing that I did in the front. In other words, I took 4 of my roses, placed them around here. I put 1 in the middle. I'm taking 4 and placing them around there. So I end up with 4 and 4, which I'm going to place right here. That gives me 8 of my roses. And then at that point, I have 4 and 4 is 8. I have 1 in the middle. That gives me 9. Let's take my last 3, 10, 11, and 12 facing over onto this side. And I have a lovely, lovely bouquet of roses. A dozen roses, but done a little bit differently than the traditional dozen roses in water. I can embellish it a little bit. If I want, I can add a little bit of my moss materials in through it, make it a little bit wilder through moss. We love playing with some of the moss materials at Rittner's, and there's some great mosses out there available for our use, and that can be one way that we can stop. There's another thing that we can do to come up with a very interesting effects on this. This is a product that we've been playing with a little bit lately. This is called Ino Sticks. They're very cool. Now, I could leave this particular design exactly as you see it here, and I'd be very, very happy with it. But I can take some of the Ino Sticks, and they're really great because they're very flexible, and we can take them and bend them and shape them and do different things with them. So, for example, if we wanted to come up with another effect on this and make it feel less classical, because it definitely feels classical in this kind of container, we can take some of our Ino Sticks, and look what I can do with it. I can take a Ino Stick and then bend it and create a little curve over it. And I can do that playing with the concept of the Ino Sticks and move it in different directions. This is something that some people will like, some people won't. But once again, you have to kind of know who you're giving this thing to. If this is going to be given to somebody who has a little bit more wild tastes, then perhaps this may be an approach that you may want to follow. In other words, taking them and working them in to come up with this kind of an effect. And again, they're very, very flexible. We can take these things, we can bend them, we can twist them, and then insert them into our design. And it almost gives, in my opinion, almost like a futuristic kind of feeling to it, because you get this kind of wildness from the Ino Sticks placed around here. In other words, my viewer, the concept here is let's play with the idea of a dozen roses and come up with different ideas that are non-traditional, different ideas that are a little bit off the beaten path, things that perhaps we hadn't considered before, that go beyond simply the design that is placed in water. And I think you can see this is giving a whole different kind of an effect, a different kind of pattern to my design as I take my middle Ino sticks and I just kind of crisscross them in different directions. Now some of you may like it, some of you may say, no, you know, I liked it looking a little bit more traditional with just the flowers there and the ivy tendrils, and that's okay too. I mean, the bottom line is there are so many different options that we can play with in terms of our floral designing. What do you think? Interesting, isn't it? A little bit different, a little funky, a little bit unusual. Well, my viewer, we covered a lot in a very, very short period of time. We've noticed that a dozen roses doesn't have to be just designed in glassware. We can do different things. We can come up with something where we cut our flowers very short and put them in a box into rows to come up with a dozen roses tastefully designed so that we're giving somebody a box of roses. We can take glassware and we can use all kinds of things like curly willow and tying flowers together and put them together in rather large and interesting arrangements that are not typical of the classical arranged 12 roses. And then, my viewer, you can see in this one, we gave you two different variations, one a little bit more traditional, one a little bit more way out with the middle Ino sticks, on ways that we can handle a dozen roses. On behalf of all of us here at Rittner Floral School, we enjoyed having you come in to our classroom today. Please keep an eye out for more of our videos. We're constantly putting them out there. We hope that you're enjoying them. And on behalf of all of us here at Rittner's Floral School, I'm Dr. Steve Rittner. We thank you for coming in and visiting with us today. Thank you.